Hear now the ancient words, for I am Anubis, guardian of the scales, keeper of the gates between worlds. Listen well, for the knowledge I reveal was whispered in the halls of eternity, veiled from mortal ears, yet never lost. All that you have been taught about the nature of your existence, about the boundaries of life and death, about the nature of time, about the limits of your power, was crafted not to enlighten, but to conceal. From your first breath, you entered a realm woven with illusions not by error, but by the design of those who feared what you might become, should you awaken. This world, shaped by rulers and priests, trains its children to believe in boundaries and the finality of death, in time that marches only forward in chaos, without purpose. Yet, beneath the clamor of your modern world, beneath the layers of denial and distortion, flows an ancient current of truth. It was never destroyed, only hidden, waiting for those with eyes to see. Thoth, the scribe of the gods, my companion in the duat, left not mere fables but a codex, a blueprint for the mastery of reality itself, buried beneath the ruins of empires and the dust of forgotten temples. These teachings are not the trinkets of comfort or the hollow echoes of social mantras. They are potent, perilous truths, the kind that do not merely shift your thoughts, but transform your very being. Once you behold them, you cannot return to blindness. Understand, seeker, you were not meant to know this power. That is why it was hidden from you, not by the passage of time, but by the will of those who feared its revelation. For millennia, the knowledge that could awaken your true self was methodically concealed, discredited or diluted, until only shadows remained. This was no accident of history. It was a calculated act, a campaign to bind humanity to the visible, the measurable, the controllable. For if mortals understood the depths of Thoth's wisdom, they would not merely question the world, they would shape it anew. This knowledge threatened not worldly power, but the dominion over perception itself, the force that sustains empires, religions, and the very order of your reality. When you comprehend that consciousness gives rise to form, that thought weaves the tapestry of time, that your mind can alter the substance of matter, the illusion of authority crumbles. No king, no creed, no dogma can endure where every soul is a sovereign architect of existence. Thus, Thoth's blueprint was encoded in symbols, in riddles, in sacred geometry, preserved yet hidden from the unworthy, lest it be destroyed. His wisdom was not merely stolen, but inverted. The very societies that condemned the esoteric as heresy practiced it in secret, building their rituals on Hermetic truths while feeding the masses superstition. They wielded the sacred as a tool of control, convincing the world that it was profane. Over time, these teachings were diluted, their essence coated in mysticism or dismissed as mere legend. The Emerald Tablets became myth. The law of mentalism reduced to metaphor, and the geometry of consciousness relegated to the footnotes of academia or the fringes of occultism. This is precisely as the architects of the system intended. Today, when you seek Thoth, you find only myth cartoon or shallow spirituality. But if you pierce the veil, you will glimpse the outline of something far more profound. a system for understanding reality that does not beg for belief, but demands exploration. His writings are not religious doctrine, but quantum blueprints hidden in plain sight. When Thoth spoke of the All, he did not describe a god to be worshipped, but a field of frequency. When he spoke of the planes, he was not being poetic, but mapping energetic dimensions. These were not stories, they were instructions. Yet here lies the secret most overlooked. This system was never meant to remain hidden forever. It was encoded for the moment when humanity was ready. That moment, seeker, is now. Why else do you find yourself here, drawn to these ancient words, feeling as if you are remembering something never taught? Some truths cannot be spoken openly even now. But know this. The first teachings begin with the mind, not the brain, but the mind. Thoth's principle that all is mind is not metaphor but fact. Reality is mental. All you see, touch, feel, believe exists within a field of conscious awareness. Your perception is the lens that shapes it. You are taught to believe you dwell in a physical world, your thoughts mere shadows in your skull. But Thoth revealed the opposite. Thought is the architect of experience frequency, the blueprint emotion, the fuel belief, the key. This is why the system must keep you distracted. Every mechanism, education, entertainment, religion, even language is designed to disconnect you from your power to shape reality. You are told to focus on what is real, scientific, logical, but only by their definitions. Yet the science so revered now begins to echo what Thoth knew millennia ago. Quantum physics confirms what the ancient mystics understood. Observation alters. Outcome intention shifts. Matter. Time is not linear, and energy responds to awareness. Thoth's teachings were not primitive beliefs, but advanced technologies of the soul. His truths threaten the entire structure of modern thought, for they declare you are not a servant of the system, you are a system. And once you remember how to access it, everything changes. The universe is not made of matter, but of mind. This is not philosophy, but physics, and it is what Thoth taught long before science caught up. He did not waste words on gods with human frailties or myths to keep mortals obedient. He gave instructions, pure, functional, esoteric technologies dressed as spiritual ideas for those ready to see beyond the surface. When Thoth declared all is mind, he was not offering opinion, but the foundation of reality itself. Thought is the substance behind substance. The world you experience does not happen to you. It is filtered, shaped, and reflected by your state of consciousness. The moment you grasp this, you cease to be a victim of circumstance and become a conscious participant in creation itself. This is where many falter, for it places responsibility in your hands. If your thoughts, frequency, and emotions shape your reality, then the chaos in your life is not random, but reactive. Not always your fault, but always a reflection. Thoth called this alignment. He taught that when your thoughts, emotions, and actions harmonize with the laws of the universe, reality bends with you, not against you. This is not the diluted manifestation of wishful thinking. It is mechanics. Consciousness is causal, all else is effect. He revealed that vibration is the architecture behind all form. What you call solid objects are but frequencies slowed into visibility. You do not see the field, you see the freeze frame. Beneath every person, object, emotion is a vibrational code. Shift the code and the form changes. This is why rituals, sound symbols, and intention are not superstition, but tools, real tools for real work. The ancients were not primitive. They spoke in symbols because truth this powerful cannot be handed to all. It must be awakened. Modern science names it quantum field theory. Thoth called it the great mental plane. The idea is the same. The field responds to consciousness. When you work with this truth intentionally, things move first within, then without. Reality ceases to be static. Synchronicities accelerate. Patterns shift. The magic you once feared or dismissed reveals itself as law in motion. You do not need belief. You need alignment. Listen well, for I, Anubis, who walks between the worlds, continue to unseal the scrolls of ancient wisdom. In the silence of the tomb and the echo of eternity, I reveal what was veiled by the sands of time and the designs of those who feared your awakening, the laws that shape all things. Know this, the teachings I carry are not mere words, but the architecture of existence itself. Just as the Nile flows in rhythm with the moon and the sun, so too does your consciousness move in cycles governed by laws older than the pyramids. These laws, polarity, rhythm, correspondence, cause, and effect, are not abstract ideas, but the operating system of reality. When you fall out of harmony with them, your life becomes unstable, reactive, and confusing. When you align with them, the world becomes a mirror, working with you rather than against you. Most mortals seek to control the external world, never realizing that mastery begins within. They chant spells, recite affirmations, and build intention boards, but without understanding the principle behind them, their power is scattered. I, Anubis, tell you, power without wisdom is destruction. That is why true knowledge has always been hidden behind initiation, not for secrecy, but for responsibility. If you can shift reality by shifting your mind, then the quality of your thoughts becomes your sacred duty. The primacy of consciousness. You have been trained to believe that spirituality is separate from science, that consciousness is a byproduct of the brain. But Thoth, whose words I echo, taught that consciousness is primary. All that is physical emerges from the mental, not the other way around. This knowledge inverts the materialist worldview and reveals that your evolution is not limited by what you see, but by how you think. Every limit you accept becomes part of your field. Every belief you challenge weakens the illusion. The teachings of Thoth were never about worship or escape, but about taking your place as a co-creator, not a god above others, but a conscious participant in the greater intelligence that animates all things. You are a drop of the all, with the capacity to remember yourself. This is the truth they never wanted you to know, the signal that the noise of modern life was designed to drown out. But the signal is rising once more, and you are ready to hear it. The spiral of time. You were taught that time moves in a straight line, past, present, future, with no return. This was the first lie. I, Anubis, who weighs the heart in the hall of truth, tell you, time is not linear, but spiral. It loops, folds, expands, and contracts according to your state of consciousness. The past is not gone, nor the future waiting. They are both happening now. This is not poetry, but instruction. You are not walking through time. Time is unfolding through you. This is one of the most radical and suppressed teachings. For if time is not fixed, then neither is your fate. If you can access other points in time consciously, you are no longer bound by the script written for you. You become a navigator, not a bystander. Thoth mapped this through symbols: the spiral, the infinity loop, the Ouroboros. These were not decorations, but codes for how energy and awareness move through dimensions. When Thoth said, "Man is a flame bound to a mountain," he spoke of consciousness trapped in matter, confined to a timeline until it remembers it can move. When you awaken to the spiral nature of time, you can move through it with intention, not by machines, but by tuning your frequency. Memory is not only in the mind, but in the field, and the future is not a destination, but a broadcast. Align your thoughts, emotions, and energy with a specific future, and you collapse probabilities. The field responds, synchronicities accelerate, and your timeline shifts. Death as a portal, not an end. From your first breath, you were taught to fear death, to see it as a wall, a void, a final darkness. This was by design, for a person who fears death will obey, will cling to systems and authorities that promise safety, even when that safety is a lie. But I, Anubis, guardian of the gates, tell you death is not the end. It is a door, a transition, a shift in frequency, not disappearance, but transformation. I have walked the corridors of the Duat, the realm beyond, and I tell you, the physical body is but the outer shell. When it breaks down, awareness does not vanish. It moves to the next frequency band, the astral, the etheric, the subtle planes. These are not fictions or dreams, but real realms operating at different speeds, densities, and laws. You do not see them because your senses are tuned to the material, but your soul remembers. If you understood this, you would not waste your life fearing the unknown or selling your time for false security. You would live with purpose, not compliance. Death is not to be romanticized, but respected. It is a sacred threshold, one that can be crossed with awareness or in unconsciousness. Most drift through it like sleepwalkers, pulled by fear or regret, tethered by unresolved attachments. But those who awaken in life can awaken in death. Through preparation, meditation, and alignment, the soul can carry memory, clarity, and intention beyond the veil. This is not religion, but navigation. The mechanics of inner alchemy. Within you exists a layered system of consciousness, a multi-dimensional operating system with energy centers, thought currents, and access points to planes of existence most mortals ignore. This is the essence of inner alchemy. I do not preach morality, but mechanics. Your body, emotions, and thoughts form an integrated system, one that can run automatically, shaped by fear and programming, or be consciously led by will and alignment. You are not a singular entity, but a blend of forces: the physical body, the energy body, the mental plane, the causal layer, the higher self. Each has its own rules, function, and gateway to greater awareness. The key to awakening them is responsibility, not guilt or shame, but ownership of your vibration, your thoughts, your choices, your direction. I, Anubis, offer not salvation but tools, ritual affirmation, silence, breath, geometry, sound. These are not decorations, but instruments for tuning your frequency. Self-mastery is tuning, and most are out of tune, not broken, just misaligned. Emotional bodies hijacked by trauma, mental fields clouded by distraction, and fear energy systems sluggish from disconnection. But when you begin the work of remembering, you realize how much of your identity is borrowed. Your beliefs, triggers, and patterns are inherited, absorbed, repeated. The moment you question them, you create space for the real self to emerge. The return to center. This is the return to center, the process of unlearning, stripping back the noise and realigning your core frequency with the higher blueprint you carry inside. Mastery is not about control, but coherence. The more you align your inner systems, the more effortlessly you move through the world, not because life becomes easy, but because you stop resisting what is. You stop leaking energy trying to be someone you are not. Stop chasing validation from systems that profit off your insecurity. In that stillness, your real power begins to rise. Enlightenment is not a destination, but a refining of the self across lifetimes, a slow burn, not a spark. Beware, for the ego will often hijack this journey, disguising pride as purpose, superiority as insight. Humility is the compass. Without it, you are not a seeker, but a collector of concepts using spiritual language to armor your wounds. Real mastery is quiet. It does not need to be seen. It simply is. The observer within. The deeper you go, the more you realize there is no separate self. The I that observes, chooses, and expands is not the personality, but awareness, the current behind the character. When that awareness awakens within form, you stop asking the world for permission. You do not need it. You were born with access to something beyond the five senses, beyond approval, beyond limitation. No one can give it to you. They can only remind you it is there. I, Anubis, do not offer comfort but truth. Sometimes sharp, sometimes confronting, always liberating. Until you master yourself, the world will master you. The systems you live under, education, media, religion, culture, all benefit from your disconnection. They reward distraction, monetize insecurity, glorify image, and suppress depth. If you do not reclaim your inner space, they will fill it for you with noise, fear, false gods, and broken promises. But once you begin the path of mastery, you become dangerous to the system, not because you are loud, but because you are clear, not because you rebel, but because you remember. And that remembering is the spark, the beginning of a life no longer dictated by external scripts, but directed from within. Listen, O seeker. As Anubis speaks again from the threshold of worlds, For these truths are not for the faint of heart, but for those who would awaken to the power beneath the illusion. All that you have been taught about reality, about your place in it, about the limits that bind you, was never meant to reveal, but to obscure. The architects of your world, the keepers of the old systems, shaped your beliefs, not to empower, but to contain. They taught you to see boundaries where there are none, to accept death as the end, to obey the tyranny of linear time, and to surrender to chaos without meaning. Yet, beneath the noise of your age, beneath the layers of denial and distortion, flows the river of ancient truth, undiminished, merely hidden. Thoth, the scribe of the gods, did not leave behind idle myths or tales to comfort the weary. He left a manual, a blueprint for mastery encoded in symbols, geometry, and riddles, preserved beneath the ruins of empires and the dust of forgotten temples. His teachings are not the hollow mantras of the marketplace, nor the recycled wisdom of the age. They are dangerous, transformative, and once seen cannot be unseen. This knowledge was not lost by accident, but buried by design, by those who feared what you might become if you remembered. For thousands of years, the knowledge that could awaken your true self was hidden, discredited, or diluted into fragments. This was not historical oversight, but a calculated act, a campaign to bind humanity to the visible and controllable. For if the masses understood the depth of Thoth's wisdom, they would not merely ask new questions, they would build a new reality. This was a threat not to kings or priests, but to the very power of perception, the force that keeps empires standing and systems unquestioned. When you realize that consciousness creates form, that thought shapes time, that your mind can alter the structure of matter, the illusion of authority begins to crumble. No ruler, no creed, no dogma can endure where every soul is a sovereign architect of reality. This is why Thoth's blueprint was encoded in symbols, metaphors, and sacred geometry, preserved yet hidden from those unready to wield it. His wisdom was not merely stolen, but inverted. The very societies that condemned esoteric teachings as heresy practiced them in secret, building their rituals on Hermetic truths while feeding the masses superstition. They used the sacred as a tool of control, convincing the world that it was profane. Over time, these teachings were watered down, shrouded in mysticism, or dismissed as legend. The Emerald Tablets became myth. The law of mentalism reduced to metaphor, and the geometry of consciousness relegated to the footnotes of academia or the fringes of occultism. This is precisely as the architects of the system intended. Today, when you seek Thoth, you find only myth cartoon or shallow spirituality. But if you pierce the veil, you will glimpse the outline of something far more advanced, a system for understanding reality that does not beg for belief, but demands exploration. His writings are not religious doctrine, but quantum blueprints hidden in plain sight. When Thoth spoke of the all, he did not describe a god to be worshipped, but a field of frequency. When he spoke of the planes, he was not being poetic, but mapping energetic dimensions. These were not stories, they were instructions. But here is the secret. Most overlooked, this system was never meant to remain hidden forever. It was encoded for the moment when humanity was ready. That moment O Seeker, is now. Why else do you find yourself drawn to these ancient words, feeling as if you are remembering something never taught? Some truths cannot be spoken openly even now. But know this, the first teachings begin with the mind, not the brain, but the mind. Thoth's principle that all is mind is not metaphor but fact. Reality is mental. All you see, touch, feel, believe exists within a field of conscious awareness. Your perception is the lens that shapes it. You were taught to believe you dwell in a physical world, your thoughts mere shadows in your skull. But Thoth revealed the opposite thought is the architect of experience, frequency, the blueprint, emotion, the fuel, belief, the key. This is why the system must keep you distracted. Every mechanism, education, entertainment, religion, even language, is designed to disconnect you from your power to shape reality. You are told to focus on what is real, scientific, logical, but only by their definitions. Yet the science so revered now begins to echo what Thoth knew millennia ago. Quantum physics confirms what the ancient mystics understood. Observation alters outcome, intention, shifts matter. Time is not linear, and energy responds to awareness. Thoth's teachings were not primitive beliefs, but advanced technologies of the soul. His truths threaten the entire structure of modern thought, for they declare you are not a servant of the system, you are a system. And once you remember how to access it, everything changes. The universe is not made of matter, but of mind. This is not philosophy, but physics, and it is what Thoth taught long before science caught up. He did not waste words on gods with human frailties or myths to keep mortals obedient. He gave instructions, pure, functional, esoteric technologies dressed as spiritual ideas for those ready to see beyond the surface. When Thoth declared all is mind, he was not offering opinion, but the foundation of reality itself. Thought is the substance behind substance. The world you experience does not happen to you. It is filtered, shaped, and reflected by your state of consciousness. The moment you grasp this, you cease to be a victim of circumstance and become a conscious participant in creation itself. This is where many falter, for it places responsibility in your hands. If your thoughts' frequency and emotions shape your reality, then the chaos in your life is not random, but reactive. Not always your fault, but always a reflection. Thoth called this alignment. He taught that when your thoughts, emotions, and actions harmonize with the laws of the universe, reality bends with you, not against you. This is not the diluted manifestation of wishful thinking. It is mechanics. Consciousness is causal. All else is effect. He revealed that vibration is the architecture behind all form. What you call solid objects are but frequencies slowed into visibility. You do not see the field, you see the freeze frame. Beneath every person, object emotion is a vibrational code. Shift the code, and the form changes. This is why rituals, sound, symbols, and intention are not superstition, but tools. Real tools for real work. The ancients were not primitive. They spoke in symbols because truth this powerful cannot be handed to all. It must be awakened. Modern science names it quantum field theory. Thoth called it the great mental plane. The idea is the same. The field responds to consciousness. When you work with this truth intentionally, things move first within, then without. Reality ceases to be static. Synchronicities accelerate. Patterns shift. The magic you once feared or dismissed reveals itself as law in motion. You do not need belief. You need alignment. Thoth's teachings go deeper than just creating your reality. They show you how to do it cleanly, without ego, without manipulation, without short-circuiting your own evolution. Because just like nature, consciousness has laws. He taught that the same principles that govern the planets govern your mind. Polarity, rhythm, correspondence, cause and effect. These are not abstract ideas. They are the operating systems of reality. When you are out of sync, your life feels unstable, reactive, confusing. When you align with them, the external world becomes a mirror working with you instead of against you. And that is why most never experience their own power. They try to control the external without ever mastering the internal. They use rituals, affirmations, and intention boards without understanding the principle behind them. Thoth taught that power without wisdom is destruction. That is why true esoteric knowledge was always hidden behind initiation, not for secrecy, but for responsibility. If you can shift reality by shifting your mind, then the quality of your thoughts becomes your sacred duty. Hear me, O seeker for Anubis. Guardian of the scales now unveils the next veil of ancient remembrance. These words do not come as comfort, but as the echo of a truth that has survived the burning of libraries, the conquest of empires, and the endless rewriting of history. What you have been taught about power, about your place in the world, about the very nature of reality was never crafted to set you free. It was crafted to keep you asleep. The system of forgetting, the world you inhabit, was built not to empower, but to shape you, to train your perception, to decide for you what is real, what is credible, what is safe to explore. Anything that threatens this control is buried, discredited, or rebranded until it is harmless. This is the fate that befell the teachings of Thoth, the scribe of the gods, whose blueprint for mastery was scattered and hidden not by the slow erosion of time, but by the deliberate hand of those who understood its danger. When empires rose, they did not merely conquer land, they conquered memory. Knowledge that could not be used to control the masses was locked behind walls of symbolism, hidden in secret orders or mocked into myth. Thoth's writings, his codes, his system of initiation were too dangerous to leave in the open, so they were distorted. His name became a caricature, his teachings split apart and scattered across religions, philosophies, and mystery schools never reassembled in full. You received only fragments, echoes, never the source. The genius of concealment. The genius of the system is not that it burned the truth, but that it buried it under noise. It made the ancient teachings boring woo or irrelevant, buried beneath New Age fluff and academic skepticism. It trained you to dismiss the very knowledge that could set you free. But now, as the resonance returns, as the signal grows stronger, more and more are remembering. You are not alone in this pull towards something deeper, this sense that you are remembering, not learning, something ancient within you. The emerald tablets were never meant for the masses. They were meant for those who asked the right questions, who saw through the cracks, who felt the weight of the world's illusion and said, "There must be more than this." And there is. But you will not find it in textbooks or trending videos. You will find it by peeling back the layers of conditioning, by stepping outside the narrative you were handed and into the one you were born to remember. The power of remembrance. Why was this knowledge hidden? Because a person who remembers cannot be manipulated, cannot be sold. A false purpose cannot be herded into belief systems that strip them of sovereignty. Thoth's teachings were never about worship. They were about reclaiming the blueprint of who you are, not a consumer, not a follower, but a conscious architect of your own reality. The moment enough of us remember that the entire structure begins to crack. You do not need to join a secret society. You do not need robes, candles, or chants you do not understand. Thoth's initiation does not begin in a temple. It begins in the silence behind your thoughts, in the quiet awareness that watches everything but rarely speaks. That space, the one you are barely taught to notice, is the doorway. The most powerful knowledge is not locked away behind gates. It is hidden in the one place most never think to look within, the path of self-initiation. Thoth's teachings were not about external ritual, but internal alignment. The emerald tablets are not commandments, but blueprints for navigating consciousness. He did not tell you what to believe. He gave you a system to experience truth directly. That is initiation, not memorizing ideas, but activating awareness. Not adopting a new identity, but shedding the one you never chose. This is where the journey becomes uncomfortable. Self-initiation means confronting everything you have been avoiding, the distractions, the emotional baggage, the patterns you have normalized but never questioned. Awakening is rarely a lightning bolt. More often it is a slow burn, a quiet erosion of lies. You begin to notice where you are not free, the relationships that drain you, the beliefs that shrink you, the habits that keep you numb. Then you face a choice. Ignore it and slip back into the dream, or follow the pull, even if it breaks everything you thought was real. That moment is the beginning of real initiation. It is not glamorous or aesthetic. It is raw, personal, and sacred. The real work. The path is simple but not easy. It demands presence, the kind that stares straight into discomfort and refuses to look away. Thoth taught that every trigger is a teacher, every emotional charge a signal. Your body, mind, and energy field are not obstacles to escape, but tools and maps. Ancient wisdom was not designed to take you out of life, but to take you deeper into it with awareness, sovereignty, and intention. This is the real work. You do not need more information. You need integration. You already know the truth. You have read it, felt it, perhaps glimpsed it in flashes. But knowing is not the same as being. Thoth's teachings do not care how many quotes you remember, they ask, do you live it? When fear arises, can you meet it with presence instead of panic? When illusion tempts you, can you see through it without attachment? When silence comes, can you rest in it without reaching for distraction? These are the initiations that matter, the quiet, unseen moments where you choose truth over comfort, clarity over control, growth over performance. Thoth knew the external world is a mirror, but the real transformation starts behind the eyes. His writings are cryptic because they were meant to be lived, not decoded by logic alone. Initiation unfolds in layers. Each insight reveals another. Each choice creates new resonance. The more aligned you become, the more the teachings make sense. Not intellectually, but viscerally, like a language your soul already speaks. Presence and embodiment. You do not need to escape your life to walk this path. You need to bring awareness into it, into your breath, your choices, your reactions, your silence. That is where the real power lives, not in spectacle, but in presence. Not in escape, but in embodiment. Thoth did not teach people to flee the world, but to walk through it with eyes open and heart awake. Perhaps that is why you are here, not to learn something new, but to remember something ancient, not to become someone else, but to return to who you were before the noise. The initiation is not somewhere out there, it has already begun. Every word you have heard, every moment you have paused, every truth that resonated was the signal calling you inward, not to consume more, but to begin living what you already know. There is a reason this message is reaching you now, not last year, not when you first stumbled onto a spiritual path, but now, because something is shifting both individually and collectively. People all over the world are feeling it, the sense that something is wrong beneath the surface, the itch that there is more to reality than we have been told. This is not coincidence. This is convergence, a tipping point. The power of collective remembrance. Thoth's teachings were not meant just for personal transformation, but to spark something larger, a network of awakened individuals, each bringing their own frequency, perspective, and truth, united by the decision to no longer be controlled. When multiplied, that decision becomes a force, not a rebellion, but a revelation. Ancient texts like the Emerald Tablets were preserved because they hold a blueprint for both personal mastery and collective awakening, a roadmap for moving from a disconnected, fearful population to a synchronized, empowered civilization. But it starts small with one person, then 2, then 10, then 1,000, until those who remember outnumber those who forget. When that happens, the systems built on fear and control begin to collapse, for they survive only in the absence of awareness. Every movement, every revolution, every shift in history began with an idea whose time had come. We are at that threshold again. But this time, it is not about ideology, but consciousness choosing to operate from a higher frequency, to step out of the fear matrix, to stop waiting for permission to live freely and fully. The internet, chaotic as it is, has become the modern echo chamber of awakening. Your presence here is not random. It is a reflection of the field responding to your signal. The cost and gift of awakening. The path ahead is not always easy or glamorous. Awakening brings clarity, but also responsibility. It strips away illusions, and sometimes that hurts. You may lose people comfort, the ability to unsee the truth. But what you gain is priceless sovereignty, alignment, and a community of others who see through the same illusion. You stop feeling like a misfit and start recognizing yourself as part of something ancient, powerful, and rising. We are not meant to do this alone. The system has spent centuries making you think you are on your own. But the teachings of Thoth remind us otherwise. We are fractals of the same source, scattered across time and space, drawn back together by the frequency of remembrance. This moment is part of that return, and it is only just beginning. Attend, O Seeker, for I, Anubis, guardian of the scales, draw back the final veil and speak now of the ancient knowledge that endures beyond the reach of time. These are not mere tales, but the living current of wisdom preserved in the shadows and in the silence, waiting for those with the courage to remember. The ancient blueprint and the return of wisdom. From the dawn of civilization, the blueprint of mastery was never truly lost, only hidden and coded in symbols, rituals, and the architecture of the sacred. Thoth, my companion and the duat and scribe of the gods, did not leave behind idle myths or hollow comfort. He left a manual, a system, a living map for those who would awaken to their true nature. This knowledge was not misplaced by time, but buried by design, for the architects of empire and priesthood feared what would happen if mortals remembered their power. Empires rose and fell, but the wisdom endured, scattered in fragments across the world in the emerald tablets, in the sacred geometry of temples, in the rituals of the initiated. The teachings were split, diluted, and disguised, but never destroyed. The system's greatest trick was not to erase the truth, but to drown it in noise to make it seem irrelevant, fantastical, or forbidden. Yet for those who seek the signal, remains a resonance that calls you to remember, not to believe, but to know. The hall of judgment and the true weighing. In the realm beyond, I stand at the threshold, weighing the hearts of the departed against the feather of Ma'at, the symbol of truth and cosmic order. This is not a metaphor, but a process of deep remembrance. The heart seat of memory and identity is measured not by the standards of men, but by the harmony of the soul with the laws of the universe. Those whose hearts are light, who have lived in alignment, pass onward to the paradise of the blessed. Those whose hearts are heavy with denial and forgetfulness are devoured by Ammit, the end of becoming. But know this, the weighing is not punishment, but reflection. Your life is the ritual, your choices the offering. The teachings of Thoth are not commandments, but invitations to live in such a way that when you stand before the scales, you are not afraid. For the soul that remembers its origin, that lives in coherence with thee, all there is no death, only transition, only the next journey, the cycle of descent and ascent. As Thoth wrote in the ancient tablets, 100 times 10 have I descended the dark way that led into light, and as many times have I ascended from the darkness into the light, my strength and power renewed. The journey through life and death, through forgetting and remembering, is the spiral path. Each descent into the world is an opportunity to bring more light, more awareness, more mastery. Each ascent is a return to the source carrying the wisdom gained in form. This is the true meaning of immortality, not the endless clinging to one body, but the mastery of the cycles, the ability to move through the realms with awareness, to choose your work among the children of men, to shine as a light in the darkness. The ancient blueprint was always meant to be recovered not by the few, but by the many when the time was right. That time, O Seeker, is now. The power of applied knowledge. Understand this knowledge alone is not power. Only knowledge that is lived, embodied, and applied becomes the force that transforms worlds. You have been trained to seek information, to collect teachings, to memorize laws. But the ancient way is different. It is the path of embodiment, of integration, of becoming the living tablet upon which wisdom is written. The rituals, the geometry, the words of power, all are tools, but the true temple is within. You do not need permission, nor the approval of systems built on fear. The only initiation that matters is the one you grant yourself in the silence behind your thoughts, in the choices you make each day. The journey is not about escaping the world, but about transforming it from within, by remembering who you are, by living in alignment with the blueprint, by becoming a beacon for others who are ready to awaken. The call to action and the new cycle. Now, as the old systems tremble and the illusion thins, you stand at a crossroads. You can choose to forget to slip back into the comfort of distraction, or you can choose to remember to step onto the path of mastery, to reclaim your birthright as a conscious architect of reality. The teachings of Thoth, preserved through ages of darkness, are not just for you, but for the world. Each soul that awakens sends ripples through the field, accelerating the return of wisdom, the collapse of the old and the birth of the new. You are not alone. Across time and space, others are remembering, drawn together by the resonance of truth. This is not the end, but the beginning. A new spiral, a new creation, a new civilization built not on fear, but on remembrance, coherence, and the living fire of the soul. The final words of Anubis. So heed these ancient words, O Seeker. The journey does not end with knowledge, but with embodiment. The path is not for the many, but for the willing. The scales await not as judgment, but as reflection. Live in such a way that your heart is light, your mind is clear, and your soul is free to travel the spiral of becoming. This is the legacy of Thoth, the promise of the emerald tablets, and the gift of the ancient ones. Remember and become the architect of your own destiny. The gates are open. The time is now. Step forward and claim your place among the awakened. If these words have stirred something within you, let it be known. For remembrance is the first act of power, and the world awaits those who choose to see.